Okay, my friends, everybody wants to be healthy. And there's a lot of disease, all kinds of things. And of course, we're going through this COVID thing now. But this is science education, understanding the immune system and how does it work? What protects you? What makes you immune from these diseases? How do you become immune? I mean, is there some special thing you do, or is it just built into your genes? What is your immune system? How does it function? Let's look into these things. But this is the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, National Cancer Institute. These are all invasive diseases, as all disease is. It invades you. So let's talk about how we can become immune from that invasion. Okay, my wonderful friends, we're just going to review some research today. That's all. Not recommending anybody do anything whatsoever. I'm looking at the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health. This is the people that give us our guidelines on how to be healthy. Well, this goes quite a ways back, 10 years ago. It was from 2011. I'm showing 2014. I don't know why. I believe this was 2011, but it was about probiotics and immune health. Now, everybody talks about being immunocompromised. Well, apparently they found out that probiotics helped with immune health. So they were going to do a bunch of studies on it. That's 10 years ago. Well, maybe it was only 7 years ago. I don't know. This is not right. Oh, yeah, there it is. Gastrointestinal 2011, October 2011, because I know I've been following this forever, and they found out that beneficial effects of probiotics have been demonstrated in many diseases. All right, so they say it's beneficial. That's 10 years ago. So I would have expected, some results on the trials that they did. Let's check that out. Okay, so once again, all I am doing is talking about what the National Institute of Health is recommending, and they're talking about, or recommending, or speaking about. I'm not giving any recommendations whatsoever. I'm relaying information. Now this is 2021, March 19th, just a couple of months ago. Probiotics in prevention and treatment of COVID-19. Now that's interesting, probiotics again. So I started looking into it, and they say saving lives and flattening the curve are the foremost priorities, and it goes on about, is there a potential role for probiotics in helping this particular devastating disease? So many people are dying, and so let's go right down to, they say there's conflicting evidence on probiotics. Now, they sell them all over the counter. You can buy as many probiotics as you want. So I don't see that as being a limiting factor as to whether you should take them or not. Whether or not they should recommend them, I don't know. But we did see from 10 years ago, they thought they were pretty good. And now it says evidence supports probiotics' role in regulating the immune system, which is what we need to be healthy. Because if you're immunocompromised, it means your immune system's not working right. So it's suggesting a definitive role. Now, definitive is a specific word. It means an absolute certain role for probiotics and viral infections. Now, this is the National Institute of Health. I'm not recommending, I'm not saying anything other than that. I am a material chemist, though. And atomic, I do all that stuff, atomic physics. I have a new theory on the nucleus, which, well, it's not new to me, but it's new to everybody else, called electron flood theory, where only dipole electrons compose the nucleus. That's what causes stability at certain quantities, and then more want to get in, but they're held at a bay because they're dipoles. Dipoles want to get in, dipoles are already there, they're stable. They say, no, you stay away. And they stay at their orbitals a certain distance because of the magnetic attraction to the inner core of the atomic structure. That's where the darkest material congregates. I have all this stuff. I should show you this. Hold on. This is all it is. It replaces a Bohr model. Electrons are not just an electron explosive particle, they also have dark matter, muon, and we've separated them. And photons are back-to-back electrons. and protons are just masses, and the black parts go to the center because the white ones want to concuss and shower away. So the black will go to the center. They've never seen it. The only time they've seen it is when we sent it through the Venturi and were able to separate it on demand, not just by accident. They've seen it. They just don't know where it came from. Now, like I say, I'm going through and seeing all kinds of people talking about this and that for COVID, and you can fix COVID with this, and what's the treatment for COVID, and I mean, it goes on and on and on about recommendations on how to do the COVID. But I posted the same stuff about the National Institute of Health guidelines, and I was given a strike on YouTube the other day, and I'm off for a week. So that's really, I don't think, a very fair, and it's not, there's probably thousands of lives are going to be lost from not being able to see this immune health situation, because I don't see anybody talking about how to get your immune system better. They're talking about take vitamin D and do this and that. Well, 10 years ago, they realized probiotics work. But, I forgot to show you, they're not doing any clinical trials. So they say it's not, who knows if it's good or bad because we didn't do any trials. Hold on, let me just prove that. Okay, so here, this is like 10 years after the first announcement that it was beneficial to these different things, which I showed you. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not trying to blow anything up that it's not. I'm just showing you what they say. Now, we get down to the bottom where the conclusion is. All right. Now, it says the evidence supports a probiotic role in all that. I showed that before in regulating the immune system, suggesting a conclusive, definite role for the probiotics in viral infections. Now, let's just cut right down to the chase. It says, therefore, supplementation of probiotics in high-risk and severely ill patients, frontline health workers, might limit the infection, flatten the curve, the COVID-19 curve. However, currently there are no randomly controlled trials. Nobody's tested it. For 10 years now, they haven't tested it to demonstrate conclusive evidence. All right? But it says, on the other hand, circumstantial evidence supported the presumption that probiotic supplementation decreases the severity of COVID-19 responses. Why shouldn't I have been able to post that? Why should I have been given a strike from YouTube for saying this, from the National Institute of Health? I don't think it's right, and I think I should be forgiven for that. I would hope. Many clinical trials are underway globally to delineate the role of probiotics in both prevention and treatment of COVID-19. And yes, there are some, but very few. And the last one I saw, I believe, was from Israel. I don't see, if anybody can present me with anybody that's doing any of this research, I'd love to know. Because I have done it outside of the traditional system where you have to report to this guy and report to that guy and all that. I have 110,000 people in my group, and I'll say I've got a couple thousand that are pretty seriously invested in understanding their immune system and have been reporting to me regularly on their results of probiotics, and it's been very, very encouraging. Let me just put it that way. And I'm not recommending anybody to do anything whatsoever. You can just do anything you want. But I'm just reporting on what my research and what the Institution of Health says. All right, so if this gets taken down, I'm going to be very, very disappointed. But like I said, I have 110,000 people that they just comment here and there, but I just put out a few questions. I said, anybody having trouble after taking the probiotics? And I was pretty incredibly happy about the result that almost nobody had any issues at all, and the ones that did were very mild. So that was what I got from the people. To just hearsay means absolutely nothing. Don't take them if you don't want to take them. Don't. I'm not saying anything. However, I decided, well, I'd see what their trial came up with. So here it is. They did a study because they said they've been studying. Oh, we're going to find out. We're studying like crazy on this. So I said, okay, good. So I came up to look, and here it is again. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health, study to evaluate the effect of a probiotic in COVID-19. So I said, okay, fabulous. So I get down here and I said, well, what's this? No results posted. Well, why is that? So I come down, I look, what are they doing? They're going to give them one pill a day and so forth. And the study started May 4th and it ended April 30th, and there's no results. So we got April, May, June, July. So we got 3 months of why is there no result? And I haven't heard anybody talk about it at all. I'm not trying to make anybody uncomfortable. I'm not trying to cause any trouble. I'm just trying to save some lives. Because I have found that the membranes are where this bacteria resides. In the research that I did, again, no claims whatsoever that I'm right or wrong. This is what I have come up with. That, well, let me just show you the layer of tissue that I had studied deeply. It's called fascia, or now it's called interstitium, and it's just been discovered, really. All right, I literally discovered this anatomy working with fossilized huge creatures. I could actually see these fluid-filled bags as they petrified in this specific condition called mud fossilization. Now, I presented all this years ago, and it says in a new study, researchers claim that interstitium, which is this layer I'll show you in a minute, these fluid-filled spaces, that's the key, in the tissue that are connected throughout the body should be considered a new organ because they service the entire body, and that these spaces may play a major role in a lot of what goes on in your body. And that's exactly correct. Those little bags of fluid are literally your immune system. I'm going to explain it to you right now. And again, I'm not trying to make any claims above and beyond what I'm saying, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You know, people can talk. I should be able to talk. Now, I'm not going to go into my mud fossil research other than to say I had this DNA certified human. It's a human lung, and I extracted the red bloody area down here and sent it off to have it tested. And I did it very carefully. I didn't contaminate it, and it came back saying that the DNA was dense and excellent quality. Because if I put water on there right now, it almost turned bloody again. And I have them that literally blood came out of them. Now, and I understand the process. It's called nucleophilic substitution, and it happens in certain types of chemistry that normally are a little bit on the salty area. There's an invasion of these particular molecules, which are transition molecules, elements, and they fuse the biological elements into stability instead of rotting, which they would do out in the sunlight, but they're not. They're in a watery, muddy, salty condition, which is where they live. That membrane, which is why they separate on the membranes. I originally was going to call this fascia-facilitated fossilization. Studying it for 10 years, I discovered these fluid-filled bags, and Gil Headley and I, who was an anatomist, PhD, a top line guy, and the nicest guy you ever want to meet. And he we were still working together to a degree. You know, he stays a little bit separated because he's a professional, and I am not really allowed to speak in this realm because I am not considered a professional. But I'm going to tell you what, I know exactly what I'm looking at there, and any anatomist such as Gil does too. And I understand the chemistry because that was my background. If you don't understand the chemistry and you can't understand what nucleophilic substitution is, I think I must have talked about it. Well, I'm sure I did, but you get old, you forget. Yes, I did, I remember now. Anyway, let's just talk about what we have here as far as tissues go and what is actually happening in invasion in general. The immune system, how does that work? Why do we stop invasion? And why is the invasion the process that causes damage? Well, this is a layer that separates you from the bad stuff out here and the good stuff in here. This is you in here. You should be living in here having a nice time. Everybody's fed and well kept and slimed up, and there's all kinds of bullets and shotgun shells. We're waiting to shoot anything that comes in at you. You're totally ready for life in here. You're nourished, and all that bacteria living in here does two things. Basically, well, it does a lot of things, and there's a bazillion strains, and every type of bacteria has a bazillion strains under its own name, like lactobacillus this, lactobacillus that, on and on and on. Anyway, every one of those bacteria creates a couple of different things. It eats different things in you, which means it can digest different things in you. And that squirts out of chemistry, an enzyme, it's called a catalyst, to break down the chemistry that you want to break down. And that one there knows when chili sauce is coming, it shoots out something that does whatever. And when carrots are coming, another one over here shoots another one out. But they flood throughout here. Now, so here that's one process they do, these fluid-filled bags filled with bacteria. So there have to be colonies of them living in here in absolute harmony and no breakthrough, because that's considered abdominal perforations, intestinal perforations. Some molecule attaches here, and there's nobody to come out and attack it back. So the guys in here are dead. You took antibiotics. Nobody to attack it. So it invades. Now, if it just one of them gets you, and you know you still have a little bit of pushback here, and your body can mount a defense. It's called inflammation. And if you don't have anything that can attack that back, was like what's going on right now with the COVID. We have nothing. We don't know it. We never saw it before. It's what they call a novel disease. Novel, I mean novelty. You never saw it before. It's a novelty. Ooh, look at that. Well, this is serious, because this is extremely aggressive and novel. So what does that mean to the vaccine situation? It means that if you don't take a vaccine, you get this thing, you're in trouble. If you have the vaccine, you already have a program within you. That's what a vaccine is a program that says, ooh, I see that thing, go out and kill it, and here's how you do it. And it tells the bacteria, I need 2 of these acidophilus and a couple of bacillus and this and that, and you create some chemistry, go out and kill it, and it does. That is what your immune system will do eventually, but we don't have an eventual to get to, because if you get it, you are in trouble now, not eventually. You need to be protected right now. So I say take the vaccine, get over it. Right now it's so aggressive, and so many people have no defense. They have no immune system. They're immunocompromised. They have holes all over the place. Your case is closed. Now, if it hits you one here and one over here and one over here, maybe you survive. But if you got, because you're really in trouble, and that's a signal of digestive disorders. And you'll say, oh man, my stomach's all the time. I have diarrhea, I have indigestion, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I'm on gluten-free this, and I boop, on and on and on, fat-free that. Well, that's what this bacteria is supposed to do, is deal with these things. Why does your next door neighbor not have that issue? Why don't I have that? I don't have that issue. I take probiotics every day. And I've been taking bulk to go along with it, and I just eat whatever I want after that. You know, I don't drink alcohol, but I eat a ton of ice cream. Brownies are good too. Anyway, here's the deal. Once you take antibiotics, and they just give them to everybody now, and they never tell you to go take probiotics. I wasn't told, and I had surgery twice because I had perforations in my rectum area. I almost became incontinent. They had no clue about this, and this was about 10 years ago, and that's how I got started. And you know, when something I need to look into, I look into it, and I look in as deep as anybody can possibly look into things, because that's just my nature. I can't help myself. I'm probably got some kind of condition, I'm sure they would say. But I want to know the truth. I want to know the answers, and I know I figured them out now. And they're just talking about a year or two ago that this is now even considered anything other than fluff. When I started talking to Gil Headley, I'm going to start bragging now. What the hell? Okay, once again, just talking, not telling anybody to do anything. I'm not making any big claims other than the fact that COVID right now is primarily they call it ARDS. It's acute respiratory distress syndrome. People are breathing and coming back, and then all of a sudden they just can't, they can't get in the air. And well, you see these little brown jobbers in here, these little brown, those are springs. And those are the things that are supposed to come back to their original position when you stretch or pull or do this, or you eat and a big glob of something comes down and squishes this, or whatever the case is. These are pinned with a little hard ball, so they don't float around that much. I mean, you could pull it and it'll go flat and it'll stretch like a rubber band, but they will come back. They'll look, everything will come back just like a rubber band. And in the middle of each one of those rubber bands, there's a whole bunch of these little bags of fluid. Well, problem is once you get invaded by COVID, it likes that kind of fluid too. It loves that fluid. And it has some chemistry that it makes. Just like our bacteria makes chemistry to kill that stuff, it has chemistry that attacks that exact piece of collagen. In my mind, I'm almost sure of this. I don't think anybody's studying it. But that exact piece of collagen is one of the 28 different collagens. I'm not sure which one it is. It could be one, it could be three, it could be six. I'm not sure. I have no idea, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's got some chemistry that causes this particular spring action. Now, that means your heart's got to go do. That's being affected. Your blood vessels go boop, 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 boop. That's how you can tell. They have to be rubbery and spring back and forth. That's just the nature of them. Your lungs, obviously, and I showed you this mud fossil lung, and that's how I got into all of this. And I understand exactly. And as a matter of fact, that's a mud fossil lung right there, all the way down to where the alveoli and holes in there. You can even see the red blood that's in there. And this lung was DNA tested. All right, so let's just get past the mud fossil stuff and understand this is not a joke. This is not a lark. This is a brand new discovery that changes everything about our health, because that is your immune system. Once these bacteria that are supposed to be there, those are the probiotics, probacteria, are gone, you're in trouble. Now, I've been working with the Fascist Institute from Germany, the director of Fascist Institute, Robert Schleif, and we had a very long conversation the other day, and I was wondering how that probiotic can get throughout the body to get to the right bags that it's got to get into. And I'm thinking, this isn't how you're going to do it. How's it ever going to get back there? Once you kill them, how are they going to get back around? Well, he came up with something very, very interesting. The people that have tattoos, there's some little particle they can detect that gets in all of these bags everywhere on your body into the interstitium layer. So it's allowing it to enter into these bags. The point being is that it goes from here over to here. It can go through your body, everywhere through your body. Apparently, these bags are not sealed. They are part of your fluid, motion system. So maybe even they squirt. When that bag closes, it squirts its stuff down until you have one area that blows up and one area that's flat. I don't know. There's a lot of work to do on this, but it's not being looked at in the way I would look at it. And it always takes money and it takes somebody to really push the buttons. But I'm telling you right now, the buttons, people are dying right now because they don't understand how effective this probiotics is. In my mind, again, I'm not telling you to do it, don't do it, but you saw what the National Institutes of Health said. And you can buy them over the counter, so I don't know what to say. I take them all the time, I'm perfectly healthy. My wife takes them. Everybody I know that's been taking them is really doing well. And they get every single thing that goes through your body has to be worked on by bacteria, these probiotics. If you just eat and everything went through you and nothing affected, there was no mucus to slime to keep the nasty stuff from invading. You get some nasty toxic stuff, you all of a sudden you get mucus. That's what mucus does. You get invaded by allergens and so forth. Mucus gets to get them and just blow them out through your nose. You don't have that mucosa coming from bacteria, because the bacteria is the only thing that creates it. Your body doesn't just make anything. Your body is just a storage area for your blood to take things and deliver things and remove things and bring things and take out the garbage and bring in the new stuff and communicate with all the bacteria in there. So, you guys doing all right? Yeah, everything's fine. Well, one day they come down and say, well, how's everything going? They're all dead. What happened? Well, they had antibiotics. It killed them all. What are we going to do now? We'll just hope we don't get invaded. Say, well, how are we going to get back to normal? Go to the appendix. That's where we got a whole blob of stuff that hangs off. It doesn't go through it. It gets all nasty on there all the time. That's why they blow up and they cut them off and they don't think they do anything. Well, that is the storage device, because everything else goes around that appendix and blows out, and the appendix holds a backup. Well, if you don't have the appendix, you're in trouble. And sometimes the antibiotics are so strong that the appendix, if you get them over and over and over, like they're doing for Lyme disease and so forth, it seems to be just so many times you just can't respond anymore. Your bacteria is just done. It's all over. So, however, I do know of people, and one specific person, I'll even give you his name, Roger Dunnigan, who tipped me off to this years ago, that they sent him home to die. Literally, they told him there's nothing he can do if he had Lyme disease. They hit him so many times with antibiotics as his body went into cytokine storm because there was no probiotics anywhere to fight anybody back. They say your body attacks yourself. Well, no, your body attacks because there's nothing to attack back. So everywhere in your body, you're getting slammed. And, you know, once you get invaded, anyway, he was going to die. And he took what's called primal defense. I'm not sticking up for anybody, but that's what I take now, and I am very satisfied. And he was healthy within about a week or two. And we have been working with Marguerite O'Reilly over in Belfast, Ireland. Her son John Jr. had very serious autism on the worst end of the spectrum you could possibly be. And as long as he has his daily shot of this probiotics, and it's not a shot, it's a little ice cream cup actually, because he won't take the big horse pills, he'll only take the powder. And they make a powder, this primal defense. And she says after he's fine as long as, you know, I mean, not 100% perfect, but he was on they wanted a locked room for poor little John, and it's heartwarming. Okay, so anyway, here's the deal now with this COVID thing. If I'm right, and all I'm doing is a hypothesis. All right, I have no solid evidence to present to you that I'm correct. However, what I do want to hypothesize is that these springs are like stiff little bundles, and I've seen them in the autopsy, and I know what happens to them. They get, instead of being nice and flexible, they get all broken up and tangled up like this. Now, also knowing that these bags can allow things to flow through them, I believe the little scraps of these things, which are supposed to be not soluble, all right, soluble means they don't dissolve. They're made as they don't dissolve, neither does the collagen. In this particular chemistry, a little bit of salty water, 7.35 pH, right in that area, this stuff stays biological. And in that salty condition, it is able to give and take, because NaCl is Na and Cl, both sides of the periodic chart, and they give and take using the transition metals, which are the blood metals. Those are the things in your blood, is just these metals. That's the life is in the blood, and that is just no question whatsoever. And what they do is they're called metal complexes. They flow through your body and pick up and deliver things. They're transition metals, and they're all kinds of spectacular colors. Now, you don't see them because they're in a state of transitioning molecules. Let's just go. But you see the red blood. That's iron. When you see iron, it's red blood. And in mud fossils, the iron is red. I'm sorry. The artery blood is red, and that's Fe2. It's iron, and it only has 2 oxygens. No, the red blood has 3 oxygens. The other side, the vein blood coming back, you've already used the oxygen. So it's got to come back and get more oxygen. When it does, it only has 2 oxygens. That blood is Fe2O2, the other one is Fe2O3. One is red and one of them is black. And I can show that over and over, and I've shown it a million times. Right here, this is a piece of a lung. And you see that? There's the black blood side and there's the red blood side. They're mixing together to get... Yeah. That's like, you see this? That's a lung. Here's another one, but this is what happens. You get the black is the vein blood mixed into the red to get reattached, and that happens inside the lungs, here and there. You know, I don't know exactly how it happens, to be perfectly honest with you, but I see these borders where they're extremely dense on one side of the lung. I guess they're, well, I'm not going to make any comment on that, but I can tell you what, that's a lung, and that's all the fibers, same fibers you're seeing here on the outside, but inside you get to the red and the black. Okay, so we've established that, the red and the black and the blood and the being able to move these little tiny broken bits of non-soluble little bits and pieces that'll flow through there. Now, what are they going to do? Are they going to get cleaned out of the body? Well, probably, but some of them appears the people are getting them caught in their toes. And they call it COVID toe. And I looked at the autopsies, no, not autopsies, but the biopsies or whatever you want to call them, pictures of toes, and it's always on the artery side. So there's an artery side and there's a vein side on every one of your digits. And they're the terminals, they call them. So one has the return of the vein and one has the coming down of the artery. Well, by the time it hits here, it's still red. By the time it gets over here, it's in that blue phase, and it's coming back up to your heart to get pumped around. And you know, well, maybe you don't know how it works. Your blood has to be oxygenated in order to deliver the oxygen. That's, most people understand that. You don't have oxygen, you die. Now, what else does the blood do? It delivers chemistry. And that chemistry has to be transmitted to other chemistry and take out the garbage. Literally, that's it. Exactly what it is. Bring me some new stuff and take the garbage with you when you go. Okay, no problem. And that's done by the transition metals that are in the blood flowing. This is not the blood. This is tissue. Layers of tissue are not where blood flows. Blood flows through your arteries and your veins. And then it goes off into little capillaries, they call them, the little bitty vessels that go out, and every cell has to be touched with blood here and there, but normally you got to think of it as a big tube coming down and all tiny little bits going and just touching everything with a little taste of blood and picking up and delivering it back to the big tube and flushed out of your body by going back up through your heart and lungs and kidney, liver primarily. Your liver cleans the blood mostly, and then your kidneys, of course, do some work on there. And it's just a process of, you got it all messed up and you got to clean out all the bad stuff. And that's what the bacteria does, exactly what it does. If you don't have the bacteria, all bad stuff going to keep festering through you. And if you can't, when you eat the stuff that you take through you, if it can't get broken down correctly, you won't have the materials to absorb. And the bacteria is the agent that does that as well. Because think of a layer right here. Now, what are you going to do here? You have to keep bad stuff out, but you got to let good stuff in. Let's say that's your intestine. Well, how are you going to get the food into you from all that poop, which has all the nasty stuff in it? Somebody's got to be a gatekeeper, and that's your bacteria. That's your bacteria. It says, whoa, no, not you, buddy. Okay, you go that way, you go that way, you go that way. Whoa. And they send him out. Now, if that guy says, oh, no, you're not telling me where to go, I'm coming. And he's a tough guy, and he's a bacteria or whatever he is. He bites and he's chewing, he's doing all kind of things. They turn around and they say, hey, Brutus, go out and take care of this guy. And that's it for him. Now, if you don't have a Brutus, you're done. And I mean, it's that quick. It's like absolutely instantaneous. Do you know that a catalyst, I know I'm starting to get excited. I can't help myself when I start thinking about how absolutely phenomenal the human body is. A catalyst is what's called it's an enzyme. It's called a catalyst. And that enzyme is created by bacteria. And it's a little chemistry set. And that chemistry set is, once it's set to go, it says, I'm going to go target some specific chemistry, and I'm going to just explode it into those little bits and pieces so that Roger can eat today. He just ate a bowl of ice cream. I want to go out and get some of that fat and a little of this and a little of that, and some of the brownies, and I got this guy got a bunch of sugar, and oh man, I got a lot of work to do, so they send out a whole batch of bacteria. Now, what does that bacteria do? It sends out an enzyme. What is that enzyme? It's a catalyst. What is a catalyst? A catalyst is a molecule that's like a machine gun. And guess what it can do to the other particles that it is around? It can break them into pieces, and not only can it break them into pieces, it can break 1 million of them per second. And it doesn't even get broken. It goes, and then it goes on to the next second, it does another million, until it's done, and then it gets flushed out of your system. You imagine how elegant that is? It blows my mind every time I even think about it. I'm sorry, I'll stop getting excited. I can't help myself. Okay, I think I talked about being into chemistry and physics and atomic theory and all that. Well, what is a fever? You get a fever. You say, well, has he got a fever? Why has he got a fever? Well, he's sick. Well, why did that create a fever? It's electronic activity. The only time you ever get heat is because something is fighting, pushing, and shoving harder than it normally would. And so there's a lot of electronic activity going on in your body that's just not normally there. Now, the dry cough, that's something where you're trying to get something out and it's stuck down there, it won't release. Fatigue, obviously, those all contribute, obviously, to fatigue. Sputum is you're trying to create mucus to push that stuff off of you. Shortness of breath, because those little things are breaking and they won't open up correctly. Muscle joint pain is because the synovial sheaths that coat those things, and as a matter of fact, I was talking to Robert about that as well, because they get a lot of sports injuries where a guy hurts a certain joint, and that's exactly what happens. He says, yeah, the coating, the lining of the fascia gets damaged or whatever it is. He had some other things to say about it, but that's not my point today. It relates to an invasion of a certain joint or muscle that is available to be taken over. Sore throat, obviously, it's attacking any in your throat. That's how it breaks through. And I saw something about an athlete over in the Olympics. She went in for a test, and they gave her the oral swab and the nasal swab, and she tested for the oral swab positive and negative for the nasal. So later in the day, I think the same day, she went back and she was both tested positive. So it obviously entered her saliva, and just like it's saying here, where I saw it here, sore throat. Okay, you're gonna have a sore throat because it's trying to. That's where it's invading. Your headache. Well, that's another thing about. Sometimes that's got to do with fever and all kinds of things, but I can't really explain the headache. Chills, well, that just happens as your body is responding to it, changes basically. Nausea, vomiting, well, most people that have pre-existing conditions, they're going to get that. Nasal congestion, that's just your body trying to make mucus. Diarrhea, you're trying to get rid of the stuff that's in your gut that is attacking you and you can't get rid of it. If your gut is healthy, I'm not seeing too much of this. I'm not seeing too much of this at all. I've had a few people say, yeah, I got it, but it was no big deal. And now, do they have damage? I don't know. Let me see if I can find some of the autopsy pictures. Hold on. Okay, again, I'm old. I go back to all the old stuff. This goes back to 1983. Now, I talked about collagen, and I showed you the pink-looking collagen that flops around, and then the brown-looking stuff that's a spring. Well, it appears that it's 1 and 3. I remember this. I remember reading this long ago. And this is acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS. Well, they have adult respiratory distress, same thing, acute respiratory. Well, acute is just, very quick, but this is from long-term effects or fibrotic lungs. That means that they break into fibers like I was talking about. Now, let's just read it quickly. Collagen in the lung tissue, it was examined from patients with this ARDS syndrome, from patients who did not have this disease but required mechanical ventilation and oxygen treatment, and from patients without overt lung disease. They used a bromide peptide mapping technique to determine the ratio of these two different types, type 1 and type 3 collagens. Those are the ones that I think are the two different ones that I showed you, the pink and the brown. and one's springy, and one's real stretchy. Now, the stretchy one, if you don't have the spring, you're in trouble. So that tells me which one is which, and we'll try to figure it out in a second. See if you can figure it out before I tell you. So what happened. We have two different types of collagens. The pink one is just floppy. We have the brown one that's springy. Now, they want to find out what the ratio is of these collagens present in the lungs. So fibrotic lungs, in the fibrotic lungs, which I'm talking about is the COVID people, from patients with ADRS syndrome, a shift was found in a ratio of type 1 to 3. So 1 turned into 3. All right, does it make sense to you? The fibrotic lungs from patients with this particular syndrome found that the ratio of 1 to 3. All right, so from the normal value of 2.2 to 1 to a mean value of 3 or 4 to 1. So normally they had type 1 was 2 times what type 3 was. All right, so it shifted from 2 times to 3 or 4 times what type 1 is. Right. Or what? But you understand. One of them's changed, and I'm not going to go deep into the little details. So, in other words, they found out type 1 or type 3 was going bad. So the patients with normal lungs with those with other lungs disease, collagen type ratios were normal. So it was 2 to 1, and that was it. Now, our data suggests that changes in lung collagen of patients with ADRS resemble those previously described in patients with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Remember that fibrosis, that's the key. The changes occur much more rapidly in the form of increased content of collagen in lungs of patients with ADRS, shown by others is predominantly type 1 collagen and the stimulus to the lung to produce excess type 1 collagen relative to type 3. So type 1 is the floppy stuff. Type 3 must be the springy stuff. I'd like to know, if somebody could tell me the difference, if type 1 is just a floppy, slimy thing, and type 3 is a stiffy, tough thing. It's not solely of whatever that is, heterogenic origin. This is resulting from oxygen or ventilator treatment. So they're saying it didn't change because they did it with oxygen and ventilator treatment. It's changing because something is attacking it and causing it to change. Now, I believe the lung tissue is being invaded. And wait till you see, I'm going to show you some autopsy pictures of the COVID people, and you are going to freak out. It's ugly, it's nasty. If you don't like it, go away. Because you see this lung right here? This was from a guy that was perfectly healthy. When you see that COVID lung, it makes you sick. The entire bottom down here is just eaten away like somebody was, like this one here, just like this. All right, the top is good, and the bottom just chewed into it. It chewed right through this fiber. That's an invasion. I don't care how you look at it. That is an invasion. And an invasion only happens, in my mind, if you don't have your immune system to stop the invaders. So if you're in distress, literally anywhere in your body, you are under attack and you're being invaded. Now, you may be able to withstand it to some degree, but if you become with something novel like this, it's new, nobody's ever seen it before, she takes right over, and you're a done deal. If you've got something like I'm going to show you in a second, don't forget, walk away, turn your eyes, get the kids out of the room, whatever, because this is very, very ugly. But it's what's going to happen to you if you don't get vaccinated, if you get this, and you're very heavily compromised. It's just how it works. All right, I told you it's gruesome. This is what happens in COVID lung. And inside those rubber, or those little bags and holes, they're just getting chewed up and eaten up. And then those little fibers get into the bloodstream, and then they go and get your COVID toe. Now let's look at that. I've noticed a very strong similarity to Raynaud's syndrome as well. It's the terminal constrictions, and they just think that they're blocking up by themselves. I believe if there was a real close examination of that constricted area, which is the blood vessels between the fingertips, and I'll show you. And that's why it causes these kind of conditions at the toes. And I believe that's what's happened with COVID too. It's a blockade, really. Now again, I get a lot. Mud fossils is fabulous for me. I learned so much. You see the blood coming down. You have one coming down as the artery, coming back as the vein. Now, so one side is going to plug up because it can't get to the vein. The vein takes it back. So you're going to get infected and red and nasty on one side more than the other, usually I would say. And where do you see this? This is a mud fossil toe from some gigantic, or finger from some gigantic creature. Now that is what would be considered the distal phalanges, which is in the middle of that fingertip. Now, so if I'm saying what I'm saying is you got red and black blood coming in here, a vein, an artery, and a vein. All right, this is all eroded away, and that's the bone black in the middle, which is where the marrow would be. Now, so if I'm right, the artery would blow out its blood on the side, boom, boom. You see there's like little spots on the side. There's two on each side, and then there's one on the end. And it's blown out its blood here and here and here on the artery side. But veins are clamped off. So they clamped right off. There's the vein, and there's the other vein right there. And then a vein on the end too. That clamped off. All right, the other ones open right up because there's no restrictions in your arteries. Your arteries bring blood down and they just flow through. Now, but at the end where they're big, they got to filter across your little tiny, and then they come over to the vein, and then the vein brings them back. But the vein has a clamp so that it'll never go backwards. The artery doesn't matter. It go back and forth, but it always pumps forward, basically. Now, your artery, your vein, different story. It never wants that blood to go back ever. And once it's this way, case is closed. And that's because everything's dumping into it as it goes out. And it's like a diode, basically. It goes one way and not back. Boom, 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 boom. Anyway, I hope that shows that. And that's a fingertip from a giant creature. I'm telling you, the mud fossils is a mind blower, and I'm telling you, nothing I can do about it. It's just factual truth. I discovered it, I investigated it, I know what I'm talking about, and that's where the blood comes, and it blew out the side, and the other side didn't blow out because it's the vein, and the vein is not allowed to go backwards. All right, isn't that cool? All right, this looks to me like where the vein, the artery would be, and it would be coming back here to go back to the vein to go back. Now, this is the artery, I think, on this toe, which they come together. It comes up and it splits one here and one there. So that vein would be running back and the vein would be running back. So the vein would be running back here and the vein would be running back from this side. So that's the artery of this one. Artery goes down and then whatever happens over here, You see it like that would be, to me, it looks like an arterial side, but who knows? All I'm just saying is I believe it clogs up in there. And I know I had pictures, I can't find them, of the actual fibers that were in the lungs, not in the toes, but when they're in the lungs now, if we know that they can filter through the plasma of the body, that's a different issue now. They're going to go somewhere. And because of specific gravity, you're standing up, they're going to fall to your toes. In my mind, they're going to maybe get in your fingers too, because they're the terminal ends too, where they have to turn around and go back. However, specific gravity, they're going to fall mostly to your toes. Okay, I guess we'll just leave it where we started, probiotics in the prevention and treatment of COVID-19. It appears to have some efficacy. I'm not making any claims other than what they said. And, if you want somebody to be well informed, you should pass this around. I mean, seriously, as quick as you can. And they can make their own determination. But as far as they can determine, there's very, very, very few issues with probiotics. They sell them over the counter, so nobody's going to stop you from getting them anyway. So you do what you think is right, and I'm doing what I think is right, and I hope everybody stays safe. All right? Thanks. I love you all.